1. Relieve stress and tension with powerful meditations to calm the nervous system. To overcome the apathetic state, high level of stress and internal weakness will help meditation healing the nervous system and psyche. Systematic meditations will help restore the emotional state, relieve depression, regain self-confidence and trust. On how effectively the nervous system works, the emotional state, the functioning of internal organs depends. When the vegetative system works intermittently, it is fraught with the development of psychosomatic disorders, a decrease in the quality of life. Being in this state, a person constantly experiences anxiety, a feeling of his own helplessness. Experiencing this, people do not see their own responsibility for what is happening and do not seek to make efforts to correct the situation. They place all the blame on external circumstances or the people around them. With the incorrect operation of the nervous system, people are tormented by neuroses, depression, and enduring fatigue. This causes disruption of the cardiovascular system and autoimmune diseases. To eliminate these ailments, meditative practices are recommended that help eliminate insomnia, restore the emotional background, relieve physical stress. The benefits of the practice of meditation for stress relief and deep relaxation, restoration of the rhythm of the heartbeat, normalization of blood pressure, the blood receives more oxygen due to special respiratory techniques, stress hormones in a smaller volume enter the body, which has a positive effect on the work of the nervous system. Techniques. Meditation does not require special equipment or efforts of concentration. As a rule, it is performed sitting, covering the eyes. The brain, which receives a sufficient amount of oxygen, works more efficiently, which means that the decisions that the practitioner makes become weighed. Prepare a place to practice. Take a comfortable position, close your eyes. Watch each inhalation and exhalation, trying to keep them smooth and deep. Relax all the muscles of the body. When all the unpleasant emotions are gone, slowly inhale with a full chest and open your eyes. After you finish meditating, do not make sudden movements. Allow yourself to pour into current affairs in a measured way. Meditative practice is good for beginners, as it is easy to perform, allows you to return a sense of peace and harmony. The functions of the respiratory system return to normal, which has a positive effect on the work of the brain. Visualization. Visualization is a very powerful tool that has a beneficial effect on the practitioner. The essence of this method is to imagine a certain object that generates pleasant experiences in the brain and transfers them to real life. Such meditation allows you to heal the nervous system, restores harmony, eliminates ailments, returns harmony of body and mind. Technique. Prepare the room for practice. Position your body in a comfortable position. Relax your body, focus on your breathing. Clearly visualize what you sincerely strive for. Allow the emotions of joy, happiness, tranquility to take hold of you. At the end of the practice, inhale with a full chest, open your eyes. When practicing visualization meditation, try to see not an abstract image, but a real picture to which you sincerely aspire. In order to achieve harmony, imagine a place where you feel good and calm, the sea coast, the peaks of the mountains, the forest glade. Your place should be secluded, detached from the hustle and bustle of people. How to meditate correctly. Meditation techniques are referred to as Buddhist spiritual practices, but they often contain elements characteristic of Indian yoga. The main goal of the process is to control the mind through inner discoveries and subsequent spiritual purification. Why meditation is needed and how to meditate properly. Spiritual purification is nothing more than the elimination from our inner world of those thoughts and emotions that can become dangerous both for a person personally and for others. If you want to learn how to meditate properly, you need to understand one important thing: there is no magic or tricks in meditation techniques. Also, there are no unconscious trance states coupled with the popular psychedelic effects. When a person learns to meditate, he gradually gains control over his thoughts, emotions, and actions, directing them in a creative, productive direction. Our mind is designed in such a way that it is sometimes very difficult to control. It is difficult to immediately get obsessive and unpleasant thoughts out of your head, as well as sticky frivolous songs from commercials. So, meditation is necessary for people, first of all, to unload the brain and strengthen the nervous system. With its help, you can remove anxious and obsessive thoughts, including about the future. It helps to improve not only the spiritual, but also the physical condition of a person. By meditating regularly, a person learns to understand what exactly he wants to achieve and makes decisions that help him go to achieve his goal. It is no coincidence that Eastern sages often compare the human mind with different animals. If you think about it, then for our mind, such definitions as rabid monkey, wild bull, or uncontrollable elephant are really suitable. The task of the meditator is to pacify this recalcitrant animal, to curb and ride it. How to learn how to meditate correctly. Learning how to meditate correctly will help you a conscious approach, consisting of several stages. Make a firm decision, choose a time and place, adopt a comfortable posture, master one of the simple but effective techniques. Conscious decision-making always helps a person to take action. He has a goal to achieve, to learn meditation. It does not even matter what sensations and doubts will visit you at first. The main thing is to remember that the more often you meditate, the more chances you have not only to master certain techniques, but also to get rid of physical and mental problems. The timing depends on the conditions in which you live. For a city dweller, the optimal time is early in the morning, when the city noise is minimal. The evening after the end of the working day is also suitable. In the morning and evening, it is easiest to concentrate and distract from the daily hustle and bustle. You are free to choose the time at your discretion. If possible, meditate a little daily, for example, 5 to 10 minutes a day. Next, when you get involved in the process, increase the practice time to 20 minutes 2 times a day. In the future, you will be able to master more complex techniques and enter a meditative state very quickly. It is not necessary to follow strict rules in this case, everyone eventually develops individual biorhythms suitable for meditation. Meditating Indian yogis are often depicted in pictures in the lotus position. Not everyone can accept it, so you can master lighter poses, for example, sitting on your knees, bend your feet under you and drop to your heels, just sit on a chair, straightening your back, stand up straight and straighten your shoulders. The main thing is that during the practice the back is flat, and the position is stable. For beginners, it is recommended to master one of the simplest meditative techniques. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, on exhalation, imagine how all negative thoughts and formations smoothly disappear from your head, breathe slowly and evenly, controlling breathing, focus on the idea of purifying the mind. If extraneous thoughts arise, try to get rid of them, watch the sensations, concentrate on the movements of the abdomen and ribs. To control the time, you can set a timer, and when it rings, make a few deep breathing movements and slowly open your eyes. How to understand that you meditate correctly? There are several skills through which you will be able to realize that you are on the right track and doing everything right. Breathing acquires a clear rhythm, becomes calm and deep, the pauses between entry and exhalation are longer than in the normal state, thoughts do not jump, but as if floating in the head, creating a feeling of inner peace and comfort. During meditation, anxiety and confusion leave you, and after leaving the state, you become more determined and collected, the body learns to relax. Soon you will be able to meditate in any position, but even if the lotus pose cannot be mastered, you will acquire the skill of spiritual practices. Being in any place and position, lightness appears in the body, it acquires weightlessness, you almost do not feel it. Sometimes at first people note the opposite effect, they have a feeling of heaviness in the body, which gradually passes, and the whole body is filled with a feeling of happiness and peace. Using simple techniques, you will be able to get closer to the true essence of meditation and understand it in practice. Of course, any beginner faces difficulties, but do not be disappointed. If you train regularly, you will certainly succeed. How does meditation work? Types, mechanism of action, and to whom which ones are more suitable. Meditation is one of the most ancient practices aimed at improving brain function and mental state. Over the centuries, many myths and mystical superstructures have formed around it. It is closely related to the context of various beliefs. But how does meditation work from the point of view of science? What types do it have, and how to choose the right one for yourself? Types and mechanics of meditation. Of course, various schools and religious movements use a wide variety of techniques for meditation. But they can be divided into 5 main categories. Fa, focus attention, concentration of attention. These are techniques in which the meditator purposefully focuses his attention, for example, focuses on breathing, looks at one point, monitors some object. According to studies, such techniques activate the work of the premotor cortex and the anterior cingulate cortex of the brain. These structures are responsible for our motor skills, movements, and attention. In addition, Fa meditation stimulates convergent thinking, associated with analyzing and evaluating information, making decisions, finding accurate specific answers. In this case, Fa reduces the activity of the posterior cingulate gyrus and the inferior parietal lobe of the brain. These structures are associated with emotional processes, and meditation successfully suppresses them. Fa techniques also make it easier to immerse ourselves in a flow state, fully concentrating on any interesting and important tasks for us. OM, open monitoring. Here and now these techniques focus on our senses, we focus on tactile, taste and olfactory sensations, auditory and visual signals. The mechanism of OM is similar to the action of psychedelics, it is a defocus of attention on all objects of the surrounding world. That is, if with Fa we concentrate on one thing, then with OM we disperse our attention, superimpose our thoughts and ideas on sensations from the outside world. Such techniques activate the work of the sense organs. Sensory, auditory, tactile, and olfactory information comes in a larger volume and becomes more tangible. Colors, sounds, touches, tastes and smells acquire great brightness. This helps to penetrate the feeling of here and now. In addition, OM activates divergent thinking, and it is responsible for creativity, the search for several options at once instead of one single correct one. MR and LR, techniques of repetition and self-hypnosis. We have singled them out in a general category, since the mechanism of their work is similar. MR, mantra recitation, recitation of mantras. It is the pronunciation of monotonously repetitive sets of sounds, phonemes, words, and sentences. LR, loving kindness, self-hypnosis techniques. They are aimed at repeating affirmations, positive statements that help to create the right psychological and emotional mood. Scientists from the University of Oslo in Norway found that such techniques based on the same type of repetition increase activity in areas of the brain that are associated with the definition and understanding of one's own I through the creation of thoughts and feelings. Interestingly, these areas in ordinary life are activated in moments of rest. Moreover, scientists from Harvard also noted that with meditations of this type, activity decreases. The frontal lobes are responsible for decision-making and planning. Parietal cortex are responsible for processing information from the senses, mainly sensory, and orientation in space/time. Thalamus is responsible for the redistribution of information from the senses in the brain. Reticular formation is responsible for the combat readiness of the brain, chooses the type of behavior of the whole organism in various conditions. That is, in the process of reading mantras and affirmations, the human brain literally rests from external information and can fully process data that are associated with one's own personality and internal psychological processes. How to choose the right techniques. Meditation. Consider the indications for various types of techniques. FA, techniques for concentration of attention. Suitable for inattentive, absent-minded and nervous people who experience a lot of stress and suffer from excessive emotionality, as well as those who need to make clear informed decisions, for example, in choosing vital paths, in technical and scientific disciplines. OM, techniques here and now. Suitable for those who often suffer from overload of the brain with information, notice an excessively technical way of thinking, want to develop non-standard creative thinking. MR and LR are techniques for repeating mantras and affirmations. Suitable for those who suffer from low self-esteem, internal conflicts and contradictions, low mood and apathy. Top 3 questions about meditation. Is it necessary to sit in the lotus position? No. It is enough to choose a position in which it will be easy and convenient for you. This will help to relax and not be distracted. Although it is still worth monitoring the position of the spine, slouching and tightness will disrupt blood circulation, and the work of the brain will not be effective. Will meditation make me smarter? Not really. The speed of the brain will not increase, but the volume of brain areas will increase. According to studies, regularly meditating people increase the volume of gray matter in the frontal lobe at the level of the right anterior cingulate gyrus, the left middle and medial frontal gyrus. These structures are associated with the processes of self-awareness, decision-making, concentration of attention, memory formation. And last year, scientists also found that meditation can increase the volume of gray matter in areas of the brain associated with subjective feelings of happiness. In short, you will think not so much faster as better. And you will feel more satisfied with life. The more you meditate, the more powerful the effect? Unfortunately, not quite. In studies, scientists have not identified significant differences in improving brain function in beginners in meditation and people with impressive many hours of experience. Although there are still some changes, for example, experienced practitioners have noticed a more pronounced decrease in the activity of the amygdala of the brain when viewing negative images. They are more resistant to negative emotions in life. Enlightenment neurons, what exactly happens to the brain when you meditate? Pro, rest for the brain and attention to the eye. What does the meditative process look like from the point of view of the physiology of the brain? According to experts from the United States and Tibet, who conducted research among people who constantly practice contemplative meditation, during this process, neural activity in the centers responsible for the experience of happiness increased by 700–800%. In subjects who began to practice recently, this value was noticeably lower, only 10–15%. In their book Buddha, the Brain and the Neurophysiology of Happiness, the researchers note that in the first case we are talking about people who have honed their skills over the years and in total managed to devote from 10,000 to 15,000 hours of meditation, which corresponds to the level of Olympic athletes. And yet the same thing happened to the newcomers, albeit to a smaller extent. Neurophysiologists from the University of Oslo, Norway, found that during non-directive meditation, it allows you to concentrate on breathing and send thoughts to wander. Brain activity also increases in the areas responsible for creating thoughts and feelings associated with a person's own I. Scientists noticed that meditation concentration did not give such results. In this case, the level of work of the eye centers was the same as with ordinary rest. These areas of the brain show the highest activity when we rest, says study author Sven de Wonger, a specialist at the University of Oslo. It's a kind of basic operating system, a network of interconnected operations that comes to the fore if external tasks don't require attention. Curiously, non-directive meditation activates this network more strongly than simple relaxation. From the point of view of the physiology of the brain, meditation is really like rest. A group of scientists from Harvard found out in the course of research that during this process, the brain ceases to process the usual amounts of information. The beta rhythm characteristic of the state of active wakefulness, EEG rhythm in the range from 14 to 30 Hz with a voltage of 5 to 30 V, fades. This seems to allow the brain to recover. Experts from Harvard also conducted magnetic resonance scans of the brain of people who regularly practiced meditation for 8 weeks. After assessing the state of the brain immediately after 45 minutes of practice, they noticed that in many areas the activity almost faded. In the subjects, the frontal lobes responsible for planning and decision-making practically turned off, the parietal areas of the cortex, usually engaged in processing sensory information and orientation in time and space, slowed down, the work of the thalamus, which redistributes the data of the sense organs, and the signals of the reticular formation, whose work allows you to bring the brain into a state of combat readiness, slowed down. All this allowed the brain to relax and engage in the processing of data related to the person's own personality, and not to the outside world. Contra, excess serotonin and disappearance of boundaries. Even the Dalai Lama is sure that meditation should be careful. Westerners move to deep meditation too quickly, they need to learn about Eastern traditions and train more than they usually do. Otherwise, mental and physical difficulties arise. Neuroscientists note that meditation can really have a bad effect on mental health, especially if you already suffer from some kind of disorder. Dr. Solomon Snyder, chair of the Department of Neurophysiology at Johns Hopkins University, warns that during meditation, the brain additionally releases serotonin, one of the main neurotransmitters that guides many of the body's systems. This can be useful for mild depression, but excess serotonin can cause paradoxical anxiety that occurs against the background of relaxation. Instead of relaxation, a person in this case receives a deep sadness or panic attack. In schizophrenia, according to Snyder, meditation in some cases can cause psychosis. Dr. Andrew Newberg from the University of Pennsylvania in the course of his research found that meditation reduces blood flow in the back of the upper parietal gyrus, responsible for deep sensitivity and boundaries of the body. This fully explains the feeling of unity with the world, which is often told by people who have tried such practices on themselves. If you block the work of this gyrus, says Newberg, you will stop feeling where your personality ends and the world around you begins. Meditation will not be useful for all patients with emotional disorders, said colleague Professor Richard Davidson from Wisconsin. For some categories of people, it may even be harmful. Davidson argues that meditative practices have the ability to alter the state of neural tissue in areas of the brain responsible for empathy, as well as attention and emotional responses. This, according to the professor, can negatively affect relationships with other people and lead to a feeling of loss and loneliness, which can undermine a person's mood, even if he is mentally healthy. Not only neurophysiologists speak in favor of careful handling of meditative practices. Christoph Titmuss, a former Buddhist monk who attends Vipassana in an Indian school every year, warns that occasionally people have very traumatic experiences during such a course, which subsequently require round-the-clock support, medication, and even hospitalization. Some experience a brief state of terror that their brains are out of control and are afraid of going crazy, he adds. Far from the usual everyday reality, it is difficult for consciousness to recover, so such a person usually needs help from the outside. However, Titmuss notes that, in his opinion, meditation does not cause such effects by itself. The function of the meditative process, as the Buddha pointed out, is to make it a mirror that reflects our essence, says the former monk. Contraindications thus, if a person suffers from depression, schizophrenia, bipolar affective disorder or another mental illness, meditation can turn into trouble for him, exacerbation, psychosis, or even a suicide attempt. In some schools of spiritual practices, questionnaires are even used today, which make it possible to identify and weed out among applicants those who have already encountered mental disorders themselves or know that such cases were in their family history. However, there is nothing surprising in this. Meditation is a way of actively using and training the psyche, just as running is a way of training the heart and legs. If your heart or joints aren't always working well, you need to run carefully or choose a different type of exercise. In the process of popularization, the topic of spiritual practices is gradually deprived of many nuances that initially made it valuable. On the one hand, simplifications allow a large number of people to learn about an interesting tool for working on consciousness. On the other hand, popular expositions often leave nothing but advice to relax, observe the breath or accept the world as it is, and those who begin to work very seriously have no idea what kind of complex transformations in the psyche they are going to have. And yet there is a way to briefly explain the essence of meditation without missing the nuances. What is meditation? Meditation is one of the tools of spiritual practice of Buddhism. It can often be supplemented with elements of Hindu yogic practice. They are similar in spirit. This practice is part of the process of curbing consciousness, which begins with observing it in its natural states, goes through several stages of excavation and ends with purification, that is, the elimination of destructive, dangerous to oneself and other behaviors, speech, thoughts, and emotions. The final stage of this process is the transformation of consciousness, the change in the most basic elements of the worldview and organization of the individual, as well as the development of all kinds of advantages, primarily the understanding of cause and effect relationships in the world and compassion for all living things. The ultimate goal of such meditation, following the Buddha's example, is liberation from suffering. Details about what suffering is in Buddhism and working on its awareness from the point of view of neurobiology, you can read The Brain in Nirvana. The idea of meditation as entering the unconscious trance state or comparing it with the effect of psychoactive substances is fundamentally wrong. Meditation is an arbitrary, fully controlled process of controlling one's consciousness. No tricks or magic, no combings if you do it right. The narrower concept of meditation implies a specific practice of static meditation. In conversation it is often called simply sitting, because for it they usually take some one pose and sit in it, sometimes for hours. We will analyze this basic meditation. What can happen in sedentary meditation from the point of view of technology? There are only two types of meditation, fixed and analytical. Fixed meditation can also be called meditation concentration, mindfulness practice or unidirectional meditation. Concentration is the basic property of human attention, the ability to arbitrarily direct it to some object and cut off everything else as unnecessary noise. It is this property that is trained in unidirectional meditation. 2. In Buddhist practice, the development of concentration is called calming or appeasement of the mind. This is how the concept of samadhi, or shamatha, is translated, by which sometimes for some reason they mean some very rushing high. It is, of course, a special pleasure to manage yourself, but of a different kind than you might think, if you listen to some popular gurus. Why you need to control the mind? The usual state of mind is uncontrollable. We usually can't get something out of our heads that is sticky or think about something that is not thinking or laziness. In addition, the mind is constantly influenced by external factors, advertising, a tethered song from YouTube, impressive events of the past involuntarily scroll through, anxiety about the future creeps into the head, hunger affects thinking or the food that we absorb, the physical state of our body directly affects the ability to think. In Eastern traditions, the mind is compared to a restless monkey, a wild bull or an uncontrollable elephant, which in the process of spiritual practice is humbled, curbed, and saddled. Thanks to developed concentration, we have two important abilities for working on consciousness: attentiveness, that is, the ability to notice what is happening both outside and inside the body, and vigilance, or alertness, the ability to quickly respond to what is happening. When we achieve steady concentration and acquire mindfulness and vigilance, we acquire awareness. This is the ability to connect everything that we notice, that is, to keep many objects in the field of our concentration and observe their dynamics. Awareness is unknowingly attributed to some magical properties, and so it can really seem when you observe a person more conscious than you. It seems that he sees through people, knows how to control time and his body, can remotely influence the condition of other people and all that. But the actions of a specialist in laser medicine can also seem to a person far from science magic. In fact, understanding other people is atypically increased attentiveness, the ability to influence them, an unusually deep empathy and understanding that helps to influence people with a word or gesture at the right time. And time management in fact turns out to be collected and focused, which allows such people to work on their tasks more productively and quickly. In short, in the same sense that knowledge is power, awareness is power threefold. When they talk about the volume of consciousness, they talk about the volume of awareness. The more a person is able to keep in the field of attention, the more interesting the results of his analysis and synthesis and the more creative his creativity. Just because he has more tools. Well, or consider that the processor is more productive, and therefore heavier versions of graphics editors can be run. Developed concentration means that you are in complete control of your mind. So, you can direct it to any subject, whether it is your scientific research, another person, or a philosophical concept. Due to the stability of concentration, such knowledge can be really long and continuous and lead to insights that are not available to superficial analysis. This allows you to move on to the second type of meditation. What is analytical meditation? The second type of meditation is analytical. This is a more complex and difficult type of practice, which is started only after the already well-developed skill of fixed meditation. Analytical practice is a special kind of purposeful reflection in which we set the subject of reflection and think exclusively about it for a certain time. Unlike ordinary reflection, in which the mind absent-mindedly flies wherever it pleases, analytical meditation focuses the mind into a dense beam and consistently, point by point, analyzes the object of reflection. In addition to analysis, a creative approach is also necessary here. Usually the subject of such reflection is some complex philosophical concept. It is necessary to find understandable analogies from life, metaphors, find connections and patterns. The goal of analytical meditation is to achieve a personal experience of abstract philosophical concepts. Such an experience is akin to religious revelation as the result of prayer or creative insight as the result of a long work to overcome the impasse or fear of a blank slate. The pinnacle of analytical meditation is the contemplation of emptiness and the responsible thinking through of the fact of the impermanence of the phenomena of the world. From a scientific point of view, you can read about this concept in the text. Does our self exist? The result of a developed practice of this kind is the Buddhist liberation from samsara or from cause and effect. But it begins with an attempt to realize these causes and effects. Analytical meditation requires a developed concentration so that the practitioner can lead his mind on the topic of meditation without losing focus, clarity of thinking and vigor, and not allowing the mind to fall into insignificant nuances or deviate from the topic. And it is also very important before the beginning of analytical meditation to be well acquainted with the system by which you are going to carry out the transformation, even if it is not Buddhism, but the psychotherapeutic school to which you are committed. Otherwise, you will have nothing to rely on to control your condition. How two types of meditation can change the way consciousness works. The Tibetan term contemplation, gom, means habituation or mastery. All of these stages from concentration on the tip of one's nose to analytical meditation on emptiness awareness are ultimately necessary to manipulate one's consciousness into transforming it into absorbing certain tenets of Buddhist philosophy. It is this transformation of consciousness and life that leads to liberation. By itself, concentration does not radically change anything, except for the ability to concentrate. In practice, this means that mind control allows us to react, with actions, thoughts, emotions, not by chance, as if life happens to us, but arbitrarily, as we think is right. By reacting in a new way, we change not only our lives, but also transform the body and brain, and therefore consciousness. That is, it turns out to be such a cycle of spiritual work. For example, thanks to developed concentration, we comprehend the wisdom of the prohibition of harm to living beings, and in a stressful situation we learn to restrain aggression, consciously replacing it with compassion for the offender. Rejecting evil thoughts, we are filled with understanding. Our body stops giving a stress response. Cortisol emissions and hyperactivation of the amygdala occur less often. This makes our body calmer and more stress-resistant overall, which makes it easier for us to continue our practice. What to do to start meditating? There are hundreds of types of practice, but we will look at a base, understanding and mastering which will help you engage in any kind of meditation. To do this, we need to understand when and where to meditate, how to use your body for practice, what exactly to do, what we can, and will, interfere with, and how to check our progress. Time for meditation. You can say that any time is suitable for meditation, but it can also be said that any time is not suitable for it. The first is true because meditation is about working on consciousness, and consciousness is always with us while we are alive, so it can be practiced at any time. The second is true because in any of the most peaceful situations, there will be something that will distract from the practice, because distraction is the nature of the mind, its natural state. In search of time for meditation, you need to remember both of these points. If you live an ordinary hectic city life, then it is better to allocate the freest and calmest time of the day for practice. More often than not, it turns out to be early morning, which is well suited for practice. Meditation can easily join the routine somewhere between the morning shower and breakfast. The main obstacle in the morning will be dullness and lethargy of mind, if you do not wake up immediately. Bedtime is also good for meditation if you go to bed every day, which means it will be easier for you to meditate every day at about the same time. Before going to bed, the mind will, on the contrary, be overexcited by the events of the day. And if you are not yet sober, then you will have to meditate for 3 to stop the jump in thought patterns. Early morning and late evening are good because at this time it is easier to give up all sorts of things, and meditation tied to the time of awakening and going to bed easier becomes a daily routine. But any time is suitable for her, at which you can be more or less alone with yourself, so that no one bothers you. To make progress, it is better to meditate every day. A place to meditate. The room for meditation in the ideal version should be comfortable, not cold, not blown by drafts and ventilated, not hot, clean, quiet, empty and all that. In fact, everything always turns out to be wrong, and you have to adapt. Meditate in drafts, covered with a blanket, undress in the hellish heat and train endurance, when in the middle of practice it turned out that the repellent not only does not repel mosquitoes, but seems to attract them. Silence is also not possible for everyone, especially if you have animals, children, or elderly people with poor hearing in your house who like to watch TV. In difficult circumstances, just know that the author of the article has repeatedly meditated to the sounds of scandalous talk shows on Russian television. But tracking progress in difficult conditions is simple. When you stop boiling, getting angry and irritated, and then hearing distracting noises, you will say thank you to your grandmother. And in general, it is not the place that paints the meditator, but the meditator who paints the place. Many beginners have a desire to drop everything and meditate until enlightenment, because it seems that the distance from the world itself is enough for enlightenment. But if a person settles in a perfectly quiet and clean place, he will still remain an irritable piece of uncontrolled flesh, and it will still be as difficult for him to practice mindfulness as in any other place. Numerous stories of classical or Zen Buddhism show that this nuance is often overlooked. As in the anecdote about a hermit who retires to a cave for 30 years to meditate, and a traveler who looks up to him and disrupts his concentration, to which the hermit in anger shouts, "Go fuck, you ruined my practice." In fact, situations where something goes wrong are also a means to achieve liberation. In addition to the practices of sitting meditation, there are many more easily integrated into life things, for example, the practice of rejection by Aleister Crowley. The ritual of preparing the place is a good way to tune into meditation. You can spend 5 minutes to bring order within a radius of a couple of meters from your mat or chair, and at this time try to calm your thoughts. Body in meditation. The lotus pose is really the most comfortable pose for meditation if your knees can afford it. If you are young, doing yoga or were born a woman, it will be easier for you. This is not due to the fact that it is easier to start with it in levitation, but with special stability due to the area of the triangle on which you rely in this position. But you can meditate in any position. The main thing is that it is not difficult for you to keep your back straight in it. In addition to the lotus, all sorts of options for half lotus and the Japanese position of sitting on the floor but on heels are popular. The easiest option for a Westerner who is not used to such a load on his knees is to sit on a chair. The chair should be firm enough, the angle between the knees should be straight, the hands on the knees. The main requirement for any pose is a straight spine. Check the neck. Usually people pick up their nose, bending the neck, and you need to lower the chin a little and bring the back of the head back to straighten it. A straight spine guarantees good blood flow during long sitting. The second requirement is to find a balance between relaxation and tone, because if you spread through the chair, you will fall asleep, and if you sit tightly in an intractable lotus, then in a couple of minutes you will have some unexpected muscles. The most important secret of the posture for meditation is that no position will be comfortable. Immediately or not immediately, sitting still turns into torment because our body is not used to immobility, and neither is our mind. The main task of the body during meditation is not to move, and it will seem impossible, because something will definitely itch, you will need to correct the foot, change the position of the hand, etc. Do not give in. Pretty soon, having reached the peak of hellish discomfort, the body will submit to your control. If scratched, just go back to static and fight the bodily impulses further. How long you need to sit. Experience shows that the average time to start practice is 20 minutes. Try to start with it, if more or less meditate for 20 minutes all the time. If you want, you can add a second and third meditation of 20 minutes a day. After a few months, you can start adding minutes or sometimes temporarily extend the meditation to an hour to shake things up. If something is wrong with 20 minutes, try 15 or 10. But remember that the shorter the time of meditation, the more intense the concentration should be. If you set a timer for 3 minutes and you roll around, gathering strength, you will not even have time to start. But 3 minutes are great for complex visualization of objects. But that's for the next stages of mastery. How to select an object to concentrate. We start with a fixed meditation to develop concentration, so we need an object on which we will concentrate. Unidirectional meditation can only have something simple as an object. The more material an object is, the easier it is to concentrate, the more speculative it is, the more difficult it is. Therefore, they begin to meditate with coarser, material objects. We perceive an external object with the help of the senses. Since modern culture is visual, our strongest perceptual organ is usually vision. Therefore, as the very first object for meditation, it is better to choose something visual. It can be a significant symbol for you, pinned to the wall, or if you are extreme, then a small dot painted on the wall, and if it is dark in the yard, then it is good to use a candle flame. Due to the fact that it is dynamic, it is easier to observe, especially if you have difficulty concentrating. However, if there are too many distractions around you, open eyes can only distract. In such a situation, it is better to close them and use sound. Traditionally, meditation uses mantras, sacred phrases with a deep meaning. A similar effect can be achieved from the prayer of any religion, if it inspires you. Technically, any slogan is suitable, even "do not slow down," Snickersnee, but remember that meditation is the assimilation of a concept by the consciousness, and not just concentration, so choose the highest possible of the available meanings. If mental problems do not bother you, you can try to listen to Bon mantras. If you are not so stable, try the noise of the waves, it has the rhythmicity necessary for concentration. The rosary is made for those who are already trying to rely on a speculative object, saying the mantra silently, but still support themselves through the senses, in this case through touch. The trick of the rosary is not to miss the moment when you have passed the circle, and turn them over, going in the other direction. It trains mindfulness and alertness. The next most difficult object for fixed meditation is the sensations of our very body. Concentrating on the breath, the tip of the nose, the sensations throughout the body at once, called a body scan, is a little more difficult. Concentration is easier to lose. But your body is always with you. If you, for example, get used to watching your breathing, it will be very easy for you to enter a meditative state outside of sitting meditation. A subtle object is an imaginary object that we realize inside consciousness. For example, we imagine the same symbol, dot, candle flame, or mantra, without seeing or hearing them actually. Keeping a simple symmetrical circle in front of your eyes for 20 minutes is not an easy task, not to mention simple mandalas of 2 squares in a circle. When concentration is more developed, it is possible to direct it to consciousness itself, but this is the next step. What does it mean to concentrate? Hold the object where it was placed, in front of your eyes or in front of your mind's eye. Maximally strengthen the signal from the sense organ by which you perceive your object, and try not to notice others. Your main task for the first time is not to forget what you are sitting here at all. This happens all the time and more than once during one meditation. The second task is to continue to perceive the selected object. It's your effort to concentrate. Do not study it, do not think about it, try only to perceive it and not to be carried away into the space of dialogue with yourself about the object. Perhaps most of all, this feeling can be similar to those cases in childhood when you enthusiastically lit a fire. It was getting dark, you stared at the flames, unable to tear yourself away from their dance. You didn't think about anything else then, but only tried to capture with your attention the emerging and disappearing forms. Even a real static object in front of your nose will also dance after some time of meditation. Of course, it is not him, but your brain that dances, and you will have to make an effort to ensure that it does not float away from your close attention. As soon as you've swooped in, go back to the effort. In addition to the selected object, a bunch of things will get into your head: memories, plans, fragments of songs and conversations, obsessive thoughts, a desire to scratch or move, sensations of pain, burning, left emotions, and in general a bunch of all sorts of garbage. Your first task is to notice it and come back. If you have learned to cope with this, learn not to carry away, brush off extraneous thoughts and return to the object. Do not enter into bargaining and negotiations with the garbage of the mind. In addition to the selected object, a bunch of things will get into your head: memories, plans, fragments of songs and conversations, obsessive thoughts, a desire to scratch or move, sensations of pain, burning, left emotions, and in general a bunch of all sorts of garbage. Your first task is to notice it and come back. If you have learned to cope with this, learn not to carry away, brush off extraneous thoughts and return to the object. Do not enter into bargaining and negotiations with the garbage of the mind. I can't meditate. This is usually said when they sit down in meditation, close their eyes and cannot not think about anything. Keep in mind that this is how everyone fails to meditate, even the Dalai Lama 14, because the nature of the mind is to think and jump, and our task is to calm it down. That's why we meditate, which we can't help but think. And the effort to concentrate and cut off distractions is meditation. What you try to do when you can't meditate is the practice, and it leads you to progress. There is another problem: what to do. It's boring. Boredom is a natural reaction of the mind to your attempt to keep it in an unnatural state for it. He is used to perceiving something new all the time. We even produce dopamine specifically to search for a new one. But the constant return of the mind to what seems familiar and boring to it is a basic exercise in meditation. In life, it is very useful. I have been meditating for almost 11 years, and over the past 10 years I do not remember a single situation that made me bored, neither on the train, nor in the queue at the tax office, nor with one interlocutor, nor in complete solitude. How to check your progress? If you need evidence of progress, don't shy away from keeping a meditation diary and measuring everything that can be measured so that you can compare the results. For example, in a year. Write down how your meditation went, what difficulties you faced, what emotions attacked you, and so on. If you are quite a pedant, meditate with a pen in your hand and a piece of paper on your knee. You can, without opening your eyes, put a dot or a stick there every time you find that you have moved away in automatic reflection from the object of concentration. You can check your progress in meditation in everyday life. True, magical changes do not happen by themselves, no matter what they say in popular books. Progress will only happen where you set your goals. Various experiments on mind control are perfectly suitable as an additional practice to meditation, from giving up bad habits to abandoning the habitual gestures, from the practice of nonviolence and compassionate attitude towards offenders to the practices of household attentiveness. Simply put, if meditation counteracts anger and other passions, eliminates mental darkness, and reduces the amount of suffering in and around us, then all goes well. If meditation makes you arrogant, more critical of other people, or believe that you now have an excuse for righteous anger, something goes wrong. Continue to practice and be attentive to your states with the understanding that these erroneous impulses are a consequence of your ignorance. Why it was great at first, and then it became difficult to meditate. When you first start practicing, everything can come easily and bring very bright results. When I first encountered what became harder and more unbearable as I practiced, I thought someone out there in the heavenly office was giving newcomers a head start as a marketing ploy. Now I understand that there are no superpowers at the first stage, it's just that the beginner has so little experience that the slightest progress seems to him a huge step. In addition, as concentration progresses, awareness grows and we begin to notice problems that did not seem to exist before, and catch distractions for which we were previously too stupid and inattentive. It can be frustrating, don't give in. In general, there are two basic obstacles to meditation, the lethargy of the mind and its agitation. Lethargy is manifested in laziness, inertia, drowsiness during practice. Excitement is in absent-mindedness, a jump of thoughts and emotionality. As you move forward, these obstacles do not go anywhere, but acquire subtle and even sophisticated forms. Lethargy can turn into a feeling of happiness, tranquility, and peace. Some believe that this is the purpose of meditation, but it is not. It is also an obstacle that often causes people to stop their activities and enjoy the results, which quickly, albeit partially, go away. Excitement manifests itself in powerful insights, vivid images, and increased creativity, which should also not be confused with the purpose of practice. It is a good byproduct, and it can be used, but not taken as the ultimate goal. The main goal of the practice is complete control of the mind. Whatever happens to you, it's all an obstacle to practice, and whatever it is, it can be defeated by continuing to meditate with unrelenting intent. Once again about why all this is. Developing concentration and peace of mind, mindfulness, and mastery of analytical meditation are tools that are necessary for constant spiritual practice or, more technically speaking, for working on consciousness. Learning the pop version of meditation is similar to a situation where you are taught to use a hammer, but are not given a nail or a wall into which it could be driven, and you have nothing to hang on the wall. No wonder some start tapping their foreheads and end up with a head injury. Of course, in this form, the practice still brings its fruits to the majority, helps to better control their feelings and actions, more clearly set goals and achieve them, improves brain function and psychological state. In the Buddhist context, meditation is one of the three stages of working on consciousness. The first is the study of philosophical truths, reading or listening to the teacher, and the second is the usual reflection on them. That is why in the classical version, meditation is called to begin after training with a teacher who makes sure that you understand the basics of the teaching and then transform your consciousness into a constructive side with the help of meditation. Meditation is a remedy. But it needs goals. Of course, you can meditate with the goal of boosting sales. Or formulate goals together with a psychotherapist, working in parallel in the office and in a meditative position to work out the same problem. But if you want to move on in practice, try 3. To take as an object some simple classical text of Buddhist teachings. My favorite is Dhammapada. It's short and simple. Read one chapter, then during meditation concentrate on the most important images or ideas that you have perceived, record the results in a diary and try to keep the spirit of what you read throughout the day, mentally returning to the passages that interested you. Over time, you will see how your thinking changes under the influence of practice. But this is the next level for those who have mastered unidirectional concentration well. If I don't need meditation. In Buddhism, it is believed that not everyone needs meditation. Spiritual practice is a need for which one must mature. You can improve yourself in the same way in impeccable work that benefits people, housekeeping and caring for loved ones, in social work and helping those in need, and much more. As already mentioned, your consciousness is always with you, so you can work on it in any circumstances. If you do not feel attracted to the doctrine of emptiness, the results of Buddhist meditation can shock you and turn you away from working on consciousness at all. Still, the main thing is to reduce the amount of suffering of yourself and others in the way you understand it. Such a task is quite accessible without meditation, Start simply with a pause of several inhalations and exhalations, when you feel that you are overwhelmed with emotions. Buddhists believe that the very fact that you know about the existence of the practice of meditation or think about it means reaching a certain level of maturity of consciousness, not to mention the situation when you practice in one way or another. Therefore, at the end of meditation, it is customary to thank the world, mother, spiritual teacher, circumstances, and everything else you can think of, for the fact that your life allows you to do such complex things at all. If you were born a dog, there would be nothing in your mind's focus tonight but paw-plucking reagents and sausages in a grocery storefront. Everything you need to know about meditation. Why aren't just Buddhists meditating? How do you feel during meditation? Is it necessary to sing Om? Is it true that nirvana can be achieved? And to cure sciatica? Or at least relieve stress? We sit in the lotus position and read the answers to the main questions about meditation. What is this? The word meditation has many definitions. In short, these are exercises for the psyche. And they are more than 3,000 years old. People began to meditate to turn to the gods, much like during prayer, but then the techniques from this practice flowed into psychotherapy and alternative medicine. A special breathing technique and concentration immerse the meditator in an unusual state, the body relaxes as if in a dream, but consciousness remains clear. Those who have been practicing meditation for a long time say that during the sessions the mind is cleansed, the problems go by the wayside, and there is a feeling of harmony with the world. Does it work? Scientists have confirmed that meditation does a lot of useful things with us, calms, relieves stress, normalizes heart rate and pressure, improves memory, and generally reduces mortality. And it's not about divine help, it's about our DNA. In the 1980s, Nobel laureate Elizabeth Blackburn discovered that there were something like caps at the ends of our chromosomes. Blackburn called them telomeres and found out that caps protect DNA in the same way that plastic tips protect the edges of shoelaces. Every time a cell divides, a chromosome must divide. Because of this, telomeres shrink, and eventually become so short that they can no longer protect the cell. The cell ages and can no longer perform its functions. The shorter the telomeres, the worse the body is protected, and the higher the risk of various diseases, diabetes, obesity, Alzheimer's disease, stroke. In the 2000s, Blackburn discovered that telomere size depends on the amount of stress in a person's life. The higher it is, the less protected the chromosome is. For people who live in an atmosphere of cruelty and violence, the protective caps are always shorter. Sports, proper nutrition, and support of loved ones, on the contrary, increases telomeres. What does meditation have to do with it? And here's the thing, in 2011, another study came out. Elizabeth proved that meditation is the most effective way to restore telomeres. A 3-month course of spiritual practices increases the level of telomerase, an enzyme that restores telomere length, by 30%. If you had told me 10 years ago that I would be researching meditation, I would have thought that one of the two of us was crazy, she told the New York Times. Why does meditation affect us so much? The main hypothesis says that this practice removes the standard reaction to stress, fight or flight. Most experts believe that meditation is one of the best ways to rest and relax. During meditation, a person breathes slowly, rhythmically. He completely relaxes and withdraws from unpleasant, heavy thoughts. The heart rate slows down, muscle tension goes away, cortisol levels decrease, sleep improves, in general, the effects of stress are eliminated. And, since physical and mental health are closely linked, so does character. Meditating people are less anxious, more easily tolerate life's blows and generally perceive life more optimistically. Is that accurate? Professor of psychology from the United States Richard Davidson proved that the body of a meditating person secretes more antibodies against the influenza virus. A study by his colleagues from the Medical College of Wisconsin showed that 20 minutes of meditation a day 2 times reduces the likelihood of stroke and heart attack in the course. Specialists of the American Medical Center Wake Forest proved that a self-knowledge session by 20% reduces pain in patients who are not susceptible to painkillers. Scientists from Yale University note that meditation prevents a number of neuropsychiatric disorders. The fact is that it inhibits the work of the area of the brain responsible for introspection. Excessive reflection can provoke schizophrenia or dysmorphophobia, a disease in which a person is so afraid of looking bad that he may not leave the house at all. In general, meditation ceased to belong to alternative medicine and religion, and quite confidently migrated to science. Even the British Mental Health Foundation of Great Britain has proposed to prescribe spiritual practices to people suffering from depression. As the saying goes, you may not be a Buddhist, but you must meditate. But research also has critics. American oncologist David Gorski believes that their results may be given too much importance. It's very easy to be misled, he argues. Nobel laureates can also be wrong. Blackburn herself sees the reason for this reaction in the fact that meditation is still associated with esotericism and religion, and not with evidence-based medicine. How meditation affects a person. The influence of meditation on the human brain is mentioned by treatises of antiquity. Modern researchers confirm this influence. Neurophysiologists have proven that regular practice of this practice makes a person calmer, more confident. At the same time, intellectual potential increases. There are shifts due to the fact that when we meditate, the brain cuts itself off from the flow of information from the outside. Does not waste resources that were previously downloaded every second. Rested, shows improved parameters of mental activity, cognitive functions. The effect of meditation on the human brain. Meditation is a kind of training of the brain, aimed at teaching it to switch perceptions. Thinking changes in such a way that it makes it possible to look at the world from an unusual point of view. As a result, a person evaluates the situation as it is, without background noise. Regularly practicing for 20 minutes daily, after 1 to 2 months you will feel positive results. However, how it all works can be felt after the first session 1. At the same time, if you want to meditate, this does not mean that you will have to go to a Buddhist temple, light special incense and listen to mantras. In fact, this process is more like a static physical and psychological exercise. The essence of meditation is the ultimate concentration of attention. This brings results. Meditation techniques are massive, but they all aim for one common goal, to relieve the brain from the background. Choose the appropriate technique will help either practice or instructor. Decreased activity in the brain center of the self. In the usual state of consciousness, the neurons of the brain work in the same rhythm. When overloaded, tired, problems begin, a wandering of the mind when a person does not think about anything in particular. Thoughts in the head jump, do not linger, do not allow to bring themselves to their logical conclusion. This causes the brain to expend even more resources. The ability to concentrate on the task, the goal, is lost. The described manifestations, in fact, are obvious to children and adults who suffer from them. As a result, a person's self-esteem decreases, the state of mind becomes depressed. If you tend to fall into such a state, you will soon notice a deterioration cognitive functions. A constant companion will be a bad mood and the development of psychological discomfort. The main benefit of meditation for the brain is the ability to notice such a wandering in the bud. And quickly suppress it, not allowing yourself to waste time and energy on empty reflections. Changes in thinking by the rhythm of neural impulses are manifested. In the state of meditation, the electrical activity of brain cells changes too. Increased attention. The essence of meditative practices is ultimate concentration. This technique contributes to the training of such a cognitive function of the brain as the ability to hold attention, to get rid of absent-mindedness. Every time you train this skill, gradually, it becomes easier to apply it at home and at work. The productivity of the body increases after 3 to 6 weeks of regular exercise. Reduction of anxiety. An additional benefit of meditation for the brain is our tranquility. Meditative practices are brain training, during which excessive psychological tension is gradually removed. There are observations that the state of detached concentration, by the impact on the human body, is equivalent in strength to antidepressants. This does not mean that an unbalanced psychological state can always be cured by daily meditation alone. Yes, sometimes it will correct the situation, sometimes it will weaken the negative symptoms. However, such a tool should be consulted after consulting a doctor in a specialized clinic. Change in brain volume. How exactly meditation affects the human brain. Help to understand the achievements of neuroscience, neurophysiology. With the help of a hardware study of the state of the brain before the start of classes and after a while, it was possible to find out that such practices lead to an increase in the thickness of the hippocampus. This site is directly responsible for human memory, the ability to think and learn, for the restoration of nerve cells to replace those lost. At the same time, the activity of cells in another area decreased, in the amygdala, which is responsible for fear, anxiety, and stress. Such studies have confirmed that personal feelings and the results of psychological tests on the cognitive abilities of people who meditate regularly are not self-hypnosis, but are confirmed by objective research methods. Preservation of the brain in old age. To have the intellect of mature years is the dream of every person. But the degradation processes of the brain are the result of the natural aging of the body. As we age, we have fewer brain cells in the cortical and subcortical structures of the brain. Instrumental methods were used to check the state of neural structures in people who had been meditating regularly for decades. The results showed that such practices contribute to the postponement of brain old age to a later date. The condition of the cortex and subcortical sections was surprising. The subjects had a better time than their peers who did not practice such exercises. 3. Personality changes. Considering how meditation affects a person, one should not miss those features that will be noticeable to others. These include gradual personal changes that accumulate over time with regular classes. Positive changes in the work of the brain gradually lead to the fact that a person changes. It becomes more friendly and tolerant with both loved ones and strangers. Petty irritability disappears. Empathy develops. It will be easier for you to understand the feelings of others and empathize with them. The sense of disappointment will disappear. Life's troubles and failures will be transferred more easily, accepted as lessons, and not as an unequivocal failure. Self-esteem will increase, as the level of excessive self-criticism will decrease. A person will be able to accept and love himself as he is. It is possible to overcome outbursts of groundless anger, the appearance of inveterate resentments. Having achieved a calm, not clouded by emotions, attitude to the world, you will be able to better resist stress. Maintain mental and physical health. Weakening negative emotions will lead to a feeling of being a happier person, improve the quality of life.